It's my pleasure this afternoon to bring you greetings from the board of the NCWC Education Fund. Since I last spoke with you, we've had a few changes to our board membership. We're pleased to introduce two new members, Chitra Kohar and Mary Potter, who were enthusiastically welcomed by our team of Carol Schweitzer, Gracia Janes, Sheila Pepper, Randy Gupta, Brenda Beluziak. Both Mary and Chitra are well known for their activism in our communities, councils, and within our national organization. We're also very grateful for the pro bono work of Virginia Schweitzer on our behalf. Karen Dempsey has decided to take a step back from some of her volunteer work, and we thank her for all of her time that she spent with us. Brenda Beluziak kindly stepped forward to assume the responsibilities of caring for our treasury, and she's now streamlined our banking processes, and we're now able to offer e-transfers as a method of donation to the EF via our email address, NCWC Education Fund @gmail.com. Of course, we're still pleased to be welcoming your donations via Canada Helps and by mail. Today's presentation will feature a walk back through time to a year that began a remarkable turning point for women in Canada. It was also an aha moment for me. I lived in a small rural community in southern Saskatchewan. I was cradling my newborn son when I noted there was talk of a royal commission on the status of women. It spoke to the need to address the plight of women in the workplace. This particularly piqued my interest as I had been forced to resign my teaching position due to my pregnancy, and I was bewildered as to why and how that would affect my work. When I spoke to my sisters-in-law about it, they dismissed it completely, as this is the way it was, and we were farmers' wives, and we already had plenty to do. After that, I kept my thoughts to myself, but continuing to follow the proceedings with increasing interest. I learned that under the leadership of Laura Sabia, president of the Canadian Federation of University Women, many women's organizations, including the NCWC, joined in unison to promote the Royal Commission hearings as it journeyed across the country to probe and document the concerns of Canadian women, particularly the sex discrimination that prevented their full participation in the economy. These years of hearings culminated on December 7th, 1970, when the monumental 500-page report appeared on parliamentarians' desks. Running through it was a clear theme. The need for a change was long overdue for the archaic employment practices that stymied women from fully participating in the professional labor force. The announcement of the RCSW hearings was met publicly with either amused condensation or bruising contempt. One Maclean's headline read, "Cheer up, girls, help is on the way." CBC commenter Gordon Donaldson sniped, "Women are demanding equality while retaining the special privileges of a lady." Most media men adopted the attitude that the commission was too silly to be viewed with alarm, as the Calgary Herald quipped. But some commenters labeled it as radical, with one headline in the Toronto Star describing the report as more explosive than any terrorist time bomb. This was indeed a milestone in Canadian feminism. The commission was both a product of feminine activism and a catalyst for it. It highlighted the obstacles faced by women and recommended changes to eliminate gender inequality by means of social policy, serving to mobilize women's groups around common causes. And mobilize it did. It united Canadian women to a greater extent than ever before and gave us a voice in shaping gender-responsive policies. In 2020, former Senator Lorna Marsden and past president of the National Action Committee on the Status of Women invited the NCWC to be a part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of this historic event. We were honored to do so and joined our federate, the Canadian Federation of University Women, in producing a PowerPoint presentation. Both of our organizations gathered the photos, and Ms. Marsden assisted with the dialogue, which was based on her own involvement with the commission as it unfolded. And we're very pleased to showcase it to you this afternoon. Stephanie, would you please play the PowerPoint? Just to continue on, by the 1980s, quite a few of the report's 167 recommendations had been either partially or fully implemented. The major thrust of the recommendations centered on the elimination of obstacles to education. Some men realized and appreciated the financial advantage of having two incomes in a family and happily joined in advocating for women to choose a career in the paid labor force. The recommendations included measures such as government-supported childcare to facilitate this participation and temporary special measures to reverse past discrimination. By shedding a spotlight on women's rights, it led to important social victories, including an equal minimum wage and maternity leave. There were other victories. The federal government established the Office of the Coordinator, Status of Women, which in 1971 morphed into the position of Minister, responsible for the status of women. Every Canadian province now has a minister responsible for the status of women. The Ministry of Status of Women Canada is, as you know now, titled Women and Gender Equality, and its focus remains on advancing equality for women and girls by increasing women's economic security and encouraging women's leadership and democratic participation. The Royal Commission was important for most women in Canada, but it wasn't all tea and crumpets. Unfortunately, the saddest of all of the recommendations and comments in the Royal Commission wasn't an omission. It was outright racism. Dismissing the issues raised by women, it called Indians, Eskimos, and immigrants with shocking indifference, and not even mentioning discrimination against other women of color. Residential schools were still widespread, and the report actually criticized Indian mothers who somehow failed to understand the value of their children's education. The poverty of Indigenous women was virtually ignored. The Indian Act, under which Indigenous women and their female children were stripped of their treaty rights if they married white men, was barely mentioned in the Commission's report. However, this Commission emboldened Indigenous women who until then had not found either the resources or the will to make themselves heard. 2.5 million expressed their grievances to the commissioners. A delegation of 30 Mohawk women made an impassioned argument for changes to the Indian Act. And since then, Indigenous women have never stopped pushing, and some of those changes have been at least acknowledged and or achieved. The NCWC and other organizations have joined them in their quest for equality and recognition, as we have embraced the recommendations contained in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report. Likewise, we have supported our Indigenous sisters in advocating for the implementation of the recommendations from the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls Action Plan. Another one of the major problems identified by the RCSW was partially addressed, but it certainly did not disappear. Particularly notable is the quest to alleviate poverty. Today's society, and most particularly single and marginalized women with children, are faced with even more dire circumstances that are jeopardizing their access to the necessities of life. The latest information states that 1.4 million children live in poverty, including almost 1 in 2 children in single-parent families, falling into poverty more over the last 2 years. This reflects a significant increase in the cost of living and the ending of pandemic support programs. We, as advocates and activists, are continuing to press for advancement on these and other long-standing issues, while embracing the so-called second wave of feminism, dealing with areas that were neglected or omitted 55 years ago. Although the Royal Commission cited the work of Simone de Beauvoir as its inspiration, it never tried to plumb the workings of the patriarchy. So consequently, our focus now also includes the need for the renewal of a gender justice agenda in Canada. Central to such an agenda is the recognition of the diversity of women's experiences and the complex interactions of gender, class, disability, race, immigrant status, sexual identity, and age. Even with its flaws, the RCSW was a landmark in Canadians' history. It sparked 1,000 conversations, cast an unforgiving light on sexist stereotyping in schools, media, and advertising, and lent gravitas to feminist concerns. Its toughest areas of focus on equal pay, pensions, unemployment insurance, and childcare, even a guaranteed income for single mothers, provided feminist activists with specific goals for many decades. Even today, the RCSW continues to work like yeast in Canada. Finally, 55 years later, we may actually witness the reality of a countrywide $10 a day childcare. Saskatchewan, one of the last holdout provinces to do so, signed on just yesterday for the next 5 years, including daycare up to the age of 6. We, the NCWC, along with many other like-minded organizations, continue to rally for the implementation of its remaining recommendations, along with solutions to issues that were not even addressed in the RCSW: male violence against women, oppression of sexual minorities, new reproductive technologies, constitutional reform, and trade issues, along with specific concerns affecting the gay and transgender communities. Unfortunately, furthering our work today is hindered by the rise in extreme right-wing ideologies, characterized by ultra-conservatism, authoritarianism, ultranationalism, anti-unionism, and the non-acceptance or even tolerance of immigrants. These ideologies present a strong opposition to liberal democratic norms and the prioritization of inclusive policies at the expense of marginalized women. They also attempt to abolish safety net programs and regulations meant to defend workers' rights and working conditions. The negative and very concerning comments on today's issues surface via social media, podcasts, or talk show programs. One recent podcast that was advertised was titled, "Did Liberal Feminism Ruin the Workplace?" According to the participants, it has, and continues to do so. Celia Edel, a research associate in philosophy at the University of British Columbia, says blaming women or liberal feminism for societal and institutional changes is dangerous and a form of moral panic. Whenever there's a wave of feminist progress, it tends to provoke backlash, Edel said, whose expertise focuses on feminism and oppression. Things like the panic over political correctness or the panic over the Me Too movement. It's kind of the same thing happening again, except now they use the term wokeness. We have much to overcome as we continue our activism and advocacy. Let us ensure that the headlines continue to echo the diversity, equality for all, and inclusive nature of new policies and programs that will enhance the lives of women, children, and families. I really thank you very much for sticking with us and giving me the opportunity to address you today on a topic that has given hope, optimism, and inspiration to many women, including me. So on behalf of the NCWC Education Fund, We hope the upcoming month and the new year will bring you peace, joy, and a renewed eagerness to continue our work in unity of purpose and person. We can and we must do this together. We, the grassroots membership of the National Council of Women of Canada, are its heart and soul. Due to our unwavering allegiance, the tradition of the NCWC continues, strong, proud, and bold. May it ever be so. Thank you so much.